Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee for March 6, 2025. And the first order of business is to approve our minutes. And I'm going to call on our Vice Chairman, Mr. Trey Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reviewed those minutes and find them to be in order. Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a couple of seconds. Any further comments? All in favor signify of approving the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mark, do you have any public comments? None were called in. I did get a call, and we'll discuss that later. May have to suspend the rules to allow the person to speak, but we'll talk to that later. Item number 3, the investment report. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Ted Beatty, Rutherford County Trustee. You can see in the investment report we did have a bid this month, and we're able to lock in some funds in the 4 3s and 4 4s, which is really pretty good in today's market, but it's about 1% or so less than where we were a year ago. But LGIP dropped about 8 basis points, so still dropping, but it's leveled out a little bit. But interest rates the last couple of weeks have just been down. Some have stabilized the last couple of days, just to give you kind of some idea of where rates are. But the Fed, where many of our funds that are a little more liquid are tied to, has maintained the same rate for the last few months. And so our rates for the majority of our funds that are not tied up in longer term have stayed pretty constant, which is a good thing for the budget year.
How long is the length on that, on your, say, your 4.4, or you said 4.05? I'm seeing
the 4.38 is our yield. That was for a year, and then there was a 4.44 yield for 2 years. So we did part of the money for 1 year and part for 2 years, just to kind of spread out our risk and to maintain our liquidity.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. If we were to take $50 million times...
Just a second. Can you pick up that other mic? That mic keeps cutting out on you.
Is that better? Is that better?
Please.
15 million times 4.3, I think you said. That's about 650,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Michael answered your question.
Thank you.
I did the math. I figured you want me to do the math.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and you know, kind of what's relative is where was that compared like to a year ago, and it's about, you know, 100 basis points different. So about $150,000 differential, give or take a little bit in those.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a motion?
Just a minute. I just have a question. How's collection of the tax doing?
As you know, the 28th was the last day to pay without interest, still obviously collecting, but our collections are right about, as a friend of mine used to say, they're tracking. They're about where we normally are at this time in the collection process.
Okay, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was that? Well, we will call roll. Yeah. I mean, if the committee requests it, I guess we could get request it, but as long as we're doing a voice roll call, same thing.
I couldn't hear the question or the answer.
He asked if we were going to have the little iPads that we use to do the vote like we do at the full commission, and I explained that we're doing it by voice. But if committee requests it, well, we can request that, but that's up to y'all. I think we're doing, personally, I think we're doing all right with the roll call, but, you know, if y'all want to change that, we can. Okay, next item is a fund condition report. Michael?
Since this report runs through February, you can see our cash collections are a little higher, but just as a reminder, as you look at the revenue report, we collect a lot of our property taxes in now. So when you see the budget report, that's going to look like it's at 90%. That's because property taxes trickle in through April, May, and June. But to answer Commissioner Johnson's questions, we were right at 89% of property tax collections at the end of February, and that's right where we should be. On the revenue report on the first page on the bottom right shows the collections every year as of February dating back to the 2016 tax year. So we're well within less than 1% of that, so we're right where we should be. So that's good news. And then the other good news is sales tax continues to remain steady, continue to remain positive on the county's situs collections and countywide sales tax, which benefits the schools. So those are all good things for us. So really, we're right where we should be, and no news is good news on that front. That concludes my report.
Any questions from the committee? Not, I'll entertain a motion. Motion to approve, Commissioner Johnson. Second, Commissioner Gooch. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Michael. Next on the agenda is the risk management financial report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ed Elam, Insurance and Risk Management Director. So for your Fund 264, for the month of February, your revenue was $1,914,484. Expenses, $2,110,090. Revenue less expenditures, $195,605. The total for the 2025 year, your revenue is $3,774,890. Your expenses is $4,407,326. Revenue less expenditures, a negative $632,436. And for your fiscal year 24-25 totals, revenue $15,522,469. Expenses $17,425,607. Revenue less expenditures, a negative $1,903,138. On the 264 fund, for the month of February, you have $470.15 for workers' comp. For OJI, you have $98,460.22. For the total of the month of February is $98,930.37. The totals for the year to date, $6,524.76 in workers' comp. OJI, $739,591.16 for a total of $746,115.92. And then for the attorney expenses for the month of February, you have $39,298.78. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from the committee?
Mr.
You recognize.
So our attorney fees are up real high. Is there a reason?
For the month of February, it was $39,298.
Okay, what's the blue then? That's last year's?
Yes,
Okay.
84.
So we're good. Never mind.
Okay.
Okay, you've heard his report. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Have a blessed night.
The next item on the agenda is number 6. However, I'm going to request that we move number 7 up before 6 because we're talking about the funding for the Forensic Center, and part of the vote on 6 would be work on the Forensic Center. So I don't hear any objections from our committee will go ahead with item number 7, funded for construction of a forensic center at Weakley Lane and I Street. And Eric?
Commissioners, I'm Eric Hennessy, Chief of Staff. I know that many of you have heard this presentation in previous committees, so I'm going to keep my comments brief tonight. I stand before you on behalf of the Mayor's Office, but please don't think that this is a project of the Mayor's Office. In fact, Carl Hudgens, who is sitting in the back of the room, has been pushing for the establishment of a forensic center in Rutherford County for over 15 years. Also, this project is supported by the Tennessee Department of Health, all public safety departments within Rutherford County, and municipalities within Rutherford County. In addition to that, we have other counties who are also supportive of these efforts. Chairman, with your approval, I would like to ask for Denise Martin and Brian Gaither to come forward and provide details about how not having a forensic center affects their department. After they speak, I would like to ask Bart Klein with KSA to come forward and provide a brief PowerPoint presentation on the building design. Then we would ask Captain Todd Sparks of the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department to come forward and give us some of his personal experiences as captain over the Detectives Division. Once that is done, I would come forward with some final remarks.
I'd like to allow you to do that, but I have a question. You said that the municipalities are in support of this. Are they in financial support of this?
I am not aware of any financial support that has been offered at this time.
Thank you. Hey, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you again, since I'm sure you've all had the opportunity now to view last week's presentation to the various committees. I'm going to condense my credentials a little so that, but I do believe it remains pertinent that you know why I can speak on this topic. I have a bachelor's degree with a major in psychology and minors in criminology and criminal justice, a master's in criminal justice administration, and a JD. I'm a licensed Tennessee attorney who has experience in civil litigation with a focus on medical and healthcare cases. I started work at the Middle Tennessee Regional Forensic Center in the early 2000s, first as a forensic technician and then as a medical legal death investigator. From 2003 to 2006, I held the position of Director of Technical Services, overseeing the Forensic Tech Department and Autopsy Suite operations. From 2006 through 2016, I was the Director of both the Technical Services and Investigation divisions. I've worked with the Office of the Tennessee State Chief Medical Examiner as a state medical legal death investigator, involved in training county medical examiners and their investigators. I am board certified through the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators. I'm also a medical legal death investigator within the Disaster Mortuary Operations Response Team, DMORT, Region 4, as an intermittent federal employee within the National Disaster Medical System. Since March 2020, I have been with Rutherford County as the Death Investigator Instructor and Supervisor of Death Investigations. I have watched and witnessed this county grow from a rural county to the fourth largest county by population, now a mainly urban county experiencing metro issues. And yet we still don't even have a county morgue. Our county borders Metro Nashville-Davidson County, so it should be no surprise that violent crime, drugs, and other such concerns inevitably and unfortunately enter into our county. As our population grows, so unfortunately do the number of deaths. In turn, so do our number of autopsies and medical legal death investigations. Former EMS director and then county coroner Carl Hudgens, as our chief of staff recognized, has looked for a plan for the forensic center in this county for over 15 years. I hope that you have all taken the opportunity to read and digest the contents of the Tennessee Department of Health contracted for feasibility study that was distributed at the most recent commission meeting. This study was performed and published by an independent, unbiased, neutral third-party panel of experts. Having read the study, you should have no doubt that we are not alone in the firm belief that a forensic center should be located and operational in Rutherford County. As page 3 states, and I quote, "All authority rests at the county level for medical legal death investigations in the state of Tennessee." End quote. It is a county responsibility to ensure that our deaths are being investigated appropriately and thoroughly, and that our forensic autopsies are being appropriately and accurately performed. The report indicated and documented concerns relating to the capacity of the Middle Tennessee Forensic Center, delays in examination leading to potential for deterioration of the body and evidence degradation, concerns about high daily caseload, limited storage, and inability to handle a mass fatality incident. As highlighted on page 26, I quote, "The Middle Tennessee Regional Forensic Center projected to serve a population of nearly, now over, 3.7 million, falls significantly below SWIG MDI recommendations. The current facility, sized at 20,000 square foot, is far below the recommended 72,682 square foot. It lacks adequate autopsy room space, body storage capacity, and autopsy stations," end quote. These issues, along with documented concern for insufficient staffing of the facility, the assessment team concluded that, I quote, "These deficiencies pose a critical vulnerability in the provision of autopsy services in the Middle Tennessee region," end quote. For reference, SWIG MDI is the scientific working group for medical legal death investigation within NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. The respected research paper referenced to and utilized in the research and findings of that feasibility study was authored and approved by past and present presidents of the National Association of Medical Examiners, as well as other members, officers, and leadership of NAME, ABMDI, and AACME, all accrediting bodies of forensic facilities and their staff. The study goes on to state on page 19 that, I quote, "Notably, among the top 5 most populous counties, Rutherford County stands apart as the sole jurisdiction that lacks its own forensic center," end of quote. And the study concludes on page 29, I quote, "The assessment team strongly believes that Tennessee urgently requires at least one additional regional forensic center to alleviate the strain faced by the Middle Tennessee RFC. Ideally, this facility would be situated in Rutherford County," end quote. Many different agencies and departments within the county and its municipalities are impacted by or involved in death investigation and forensics. They have vocalized support for the need and necessity of a Rutherford County Forensic Center. In fact, the Rutherford County Forensic Center is supported by the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office, Rutherford County EMS, the Rutherford County Fire Marshal's Office within Rutherford County Fire and Rescue, Murfreesboro Police Department, Rutherford County Emergency Management, and the Smyrna Police Department. The county and municipal agencies have stressed that current challenges affecting productivity, travel time to and from Nashville, burdening their overtime budgets, the need to become a priority instead of jostling for position amongst the 63 counties serviced, and issues with communication, which is detrimental to case investigations, to name but a few. These issues would resolve with a Rutherford County Forensic Center. The Rutherford County Forensic Center would prioritize the Rutherford County cases. Each regional forensic center in Tennessee also serves as the medical examiner's office for the jurisdiction or county in which it's located. Each regional forensic center is therefore expected to prioritize its own county's autopsies and investigations. But unfortunately for Rutherford County and 2/3 of the state, we currently do not have that priority. We've received written support from many counties' medical examiners, a Tennessee Regional Forensic Center, the District Attorney's Office, hospitals, and institutes of higher education. Having a Rutherford County Forensic Center would immediately unburden our incredibly busy EMS service and its shift supervisors of performing work that is outside of its emergency medical mission, that of saving lives and provision of emergency medical care. In fact, I'll ask our EMS Director, Brian Gaither, to elaborate on that, please.
Currently, our EMS supervisors spend a significant amount of time conducting death investigations due to the lack of 24-hour medical examiner investigator coverage. While this responsibility is part of their job description, it's not their primary role, nor is it where their training and focus should be. Our supervisors are first and foremost EMS providers dedicated to saving lives and providing emergency medical care. When they are tied up investigating deaths, often for hours, it not only pulls them away from their primary duties, but also adds unnecessary stress and contributes to burnout and potential PTSD. Additionally, because death investigations are not their main responsibility, there is a risk that these cases may not receive the same level of thoroughness that a full-time trained investigator would provide. This is not a reflection on our supervisor's dedication, but rather an indication that we need a more specialized approach. A forensic center in Rutherford County would alleviate this burden, ensuring that death investigations are handled by experts while allowing our EMS providers to focus on what they do best, caring for the living. It would also improve the quality and efficiency of forensic work in our community, benefiting law enforcement, public health, and the families affected by these tragedies. I strongly urge you to support the Forensic Center to provide professional, round-the-clock investigative resources our county needs.
I will conclude with a quick discussion on costs, since we are in budget, and I know that is something that you focus on. There are real and hidden costs involved. Currently, we're expending almost $1 million on vendor autopsy service, including transportation out of the county. This number will only continue to increase, not only due to continued population growth, but also on fee increases from the for-profit company who operates the Middle Tennessee Forensic Center in Nashville, and due to transportation cost increases. As you should recall, we have had 4 significant fee increases within 4 years to autopsy fees, with little notice and mid-fiscal year each time. We are anticipating another one soon based on historical regularity. As a reminder, the Middle Tennessee Regional Forensic Center currently charges $2,500 per autopsy, compared to $1,900 charged by Knox County RFC. The cost of the required county-level medical examiner's office is approximately $500,000 when fully staffed. The Rutherford County Regional Forensic Center would combine those two services, those of autopsy service and our medical examiner's office, absorbing the ME office and moving current staff, offices, and equipment into that facility. The only additional staff that would be needed at first would be a forensic pathologist, 2 forensic techs, and an administrative assistant. By combining these 2 services in-house, we would anticipate significant cost savings over what is currently being spent to send our autopsies out of county. Other cost reimbursement will be available to us from the state, including $150 per autopsy, $12.50 per infant autopsy, and a toxicology reimbursement share, amongst other things. So we would immediately see this annual cost savings of hundreds of thousands of dollars based on the additional sources of revenue just mentioned and the cost savings from running our own department. If the county were then to offer service to other counties, while more staff would be needed, of course, additional revenue from that autopsy service would be realized, offsetting significant operational costs. But these are just the surface level costs. The hidden costs we currently incur should not be ignored. Overtime incurred by our law enforcement and other agency investigators currently having to travel through heavy traffic to and from the Middle Tennessee Regional Forensic Center. Autopsy scheduling issues caused by Nashville's high daily caseload and our lower priority level, causing law enforcement investigators to miss being present for an exam or having sometimes to wait all day. Stilted communication regarding case findings and progress, a real cost to our investigations and to our families, both as relates to peace of mind and closure of estates. The cost passed on to our families due to the local funeral homes having to travel to North Nashville and transport decedents remains back to our county for final arrangements. And the cost to legal next of kin are being charged for autopsy, investigative, and toxicology reports by the Middle Tennessee Regional Forensic Center. The hidden cost to our EMS for the hours the supervisors are having to dedicate to death investigation instead of emergency medicine. The cost to our judicial system when we consider the quality and timeliness of reports. These cost savings are significant. The Rutherford County Regional Forensic Center would directly benefit the budget and be fiscally responsible. I will end with a quote from the original white paper that was drafted almost 10 years ago now, but continues to be pertinent today. A Rutherford County Regional Forensic Center would provide Rutherford and surrounding counties with a long-term, sustainable, cost-effective means of providing medical legal autopsy service for a rapidly growing population. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Denise?
Okay.
The Middle Tennessee area, how many forensic centers did you say we have?
One.
One. State of Tennessee, was there 3?
We have 5 regional forensic center in the state. We have one in West Tennessee, one in Nashville, which services 2/3 of the state now.
Okay.
One in Knox County, one in Hamilton, and one in East Tennessee.
Should this pass and we get it built fully staffed, how many people inside that building can perform an autopsy?
The forensic pathologist is in charge of the autopsy process. They have forensic technicians to support that and forensic investigators to provide the medical legal death investigation service.
So basically one,
Well, one initially for Rutherford County, yes, sir.
Rutherford County. Reason I'm questioning this, you say we have one in Middle Tennessee, this will be 2. So the people that can actually perform this procedure are not like car lot salesmen. There doesn't seem to be very many around. If we build this, and of course, I'm not doing this to dog the forensic center. I was watching this on TV the other night, and I thought, well, I'm going to ask. If our man gets sick, how long would it take you to replace that position to continue to do autopsies?
Right. Well, initially we would have support services from 2 contract forensic pathologists. That's pretty standard in today's day and age, is to have contract pathologists as well. The state medical examiner has also worked at 7 of the regional forensic centers as basically a replacement until another pathologist can be found or if they're short-staffed. I've also been approached by several forensic pathologists who are very interested in this project, as well as a not-for-profit agency that essentially could staff us in the short term as well as long term.
So you feel confident if we hired one, didn't work out, there would be another one to fill the position?
Yes, I think Rutherford is a very attractive prospect for anybody to come to. So I think we certainly have that going to us, and I think that we've seen that in the population growth in Tennessee in general, but particularly in Rutherford County. People want to move to Rutherford County. So I've actually had conversations with forensic pathologists who have given their intent that they wish to apply when we're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Denise, I'd like to see a list of your cost analysis there and the budget that you said that would be under $1 million with the forensic pathologist and the other 4, like you said. So you're talking about hiring 5 people to start off with.
Right. I think I'll pass that really on to Michael because he's been looking at that.
So based on the other meetings I heard, I ran kind of an estimate. I did six people. I did 1 pathologist, 2 techs, an administrative assistant, and then I did 2 death investigators. Now, I added that based on a potential volume because we already have some death investigators on staff. So I just did, as a conservative approach, 2 additional ones, not knowing how many we'd have. My rough estimate, that came out between $700,000 and $800,000. Which is kind of thinking line. That includes benefits. So it was less. I believe the number that some other committees have heard is right around $500,000, and that number is correct without benefits. But with benefits, it'd be between $700,000 and $800,000 for those 6 positions. The majority of that salary being a pathologist, obviously. And so that was kind of my estimate, not knowing this center, as I understand it, would be 18 months out at the earliest. So not knowing what pension rates would be 2 years from now or insurance, I estimated pretty high on the benefits side. So between $700,000 and $800,000 for those 6 positions. And if we went down to 5, it's about between around 650 or so thousand.
So since you're rolling numbers out for us, and she mentioned our cost of around $1 million for the autopsies right now. How's that going to balance out, putting these two agencies together? We're going to be making money, as she allocated?
I think at worst case, we'd break even. At best case, we would show I don't want to call it a profit, a small surplus, because obviously we'd have to have a contract pathologist. I think even if you had a full-time pathologist, the way I understand it, you'd have to have a contract, or that person takes vacation, is sick, or we just get overloaded and we need 2 autopsies. So my numbers show we're pretty close to breaking even based on, again, I'm projecting almost 2 years out. So I think we'll be, at worst case, break even based on what we're paying now. And, at best case, cover our cost plus a little something.
Is that also counting the cost of building the building and the debt service on that?
Well, I didn't include any debt service, so the only thing that you would potentially, because we would be paying this out of funds that we already have on hand, you could look at the opportunity cost of the $15 million. So we kind of looked at that. If that's the case, you'd be negative a little bit, depending on, again, several variables 2 years out. I also modeled what we would spend through 2027 on autopsies. Denise is right. Right now, I projected for the end of the year, we'd be between $950,000 and $1 million to end this fiscal year that we're on today. Last fiscal year, we spent approximately $825,000 on autopsies, and we're about 16% as of February, 16% over last year's cost as of February. So if I modeled that out to fiscal year 2027, we'd be almost at 1.3 million total for autopsies based on the same increase. I went back to 2020 and modeled it forward to 2027 based on actual. So FY27, we'd be projected to spend approximately 1.2 to 1.3 million on autopsies and transport. And then you mix that with hiring the employees, and then a potential opportunity cost or a present value number, whatever interest rate. Of course, that's a variable. We could choose that depending on what interest rates are now or next year. So I kind of looked at that based on kind of the question Commissioner Irvin asked at the beginning. So like I said, I think we'd be really close to breaking even depending on several variables, interest rates, benefits that could put you plus or minus 100,000 or so, give or take in 2 years. I know that was a lot, sorry.
Any other questions from the committee?
I happen to have a few. So we're out $645,000 a year in interest. We're out $15 million. So we can save $950,000. Is that the basic equation?
Can I help answer that question? Sure.
Fine, I'm happy to.
Okay, it's just,
I'm trying to understand at a really basic level.
we're not, in my opinion, building this and staffing this with the number one priority of saving money. Is to have a forensic center in our county that we can take care of our citizens. And that's number one. But over the course of time, and I'm not saying or projecting that this will pay for itself, but it will certainly generate some income in surplus as the same as, say, the building and codes department. They charge fees and they may not be fully staffed or fully funded, but that parts to fund the department. Just because it may not fully 100% fund the department doesn't mean we should do away with the department. But I think that the number one issue is taking care of Rutherford County citizens with the forensic center that we need, and in time we'll be able to help take care of other counties and receive some income from that or some fees from that. And so I don't think it's necessarily we're going to spend $15 million to save $900,000.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. And I am not.
Excuse me a second. Are you using the same mic again?
No, it's just I'm using it. I've used both of them now. Okay, I'll try that one. Maybe it's me, I don't know. Okay, so, and I want to emphasize, I appreciate that analysis. I really do. I, in a sense, share the conceptual view that Rutherford County should, at some point, have a forensic center, especially in light of the report, et cetera, that came out. I have questions, I have serious questions about the timing of it, okay? I have questions about whether or not this makes sense, you know, in terms of our goals for it. In other words, I don't know, may I shift back? Okay. Okay, I'll shift back. And did you have an opportunity to see a letter that Dr. Kennedy, the former ME at Williamson County?
I did, Commissioner, yes.
Okay. And did you happen to see that, or happen to notice that there was the first priority being finding a forensic pathologist, okay, so that who would set the tone, who would establish, you know, kind of this is where we are as a county are headed, because I think what everyone would like to avoid is we hire a contract, you know, it doesn't work out, hire another contract. I think from my perspective, it might be better to hire someone with some vision who could take over the department, have some vision with respect to the department, make it a department that, and not that we wouldn't be proud, but it's that we would all be proud of for an extended period of time. And to that end, and eventually get certified, which my understanding is you have to have a forensic pathologist to be certified. So, you know, that would establish continuity, it would establish a number of things. So, along those same lines, I wanted to ask again, have y'all, it could be an Eric question or you question, I'm not sure, have y'all reached out to, you know, the legislative delegation, other counties, MTSU, Meharry? I asked these same questions in property management, but I also want to ask them here and add, have y'all talked with Dr. Adele Lewis about this? Okay, and my understanding is she's neutral, but if, you know, have y'all consulted and started that process to work through not just kind of the basics, but where do we go from here? What's our ultimate goal, you know, with respect to it? And then the additional question is kind of who is going to run this center? Okay, and my understanding is there's several options. I can refer to Dr. Kennedy's letter, and I'll be glad to provide a copy if anybody would like one. But it's, you know, the question of who's going to run the process, and I'd like to know about where that is in terms of, is it Vanderbilt? Is it going to, you know, is it, you know, the forensic medical? Is it someone else? Or are we going to try to bring in and create our very own? Is that person, going back to question one, I guess, who is going to set the vision for this forensic center? So now I'll be quiet and let you respond, and I'll probably have a few more questions at some point.
All right, so starting, I believe, was your initial question, why haven't we got a forensic pathologist on board now? Well, essentially, a forensic pathologist is one of our biggest expenses once we get to the operational costs. So bringing on a forensic pathologist now on staff, you know, essentially we don't need somebody. We don't do our own autopsies yet. So having a forensic pathologist committing to a project that we haven't broken ground on yet or even got it through the approval stages, the forensic pathologists typically are already working in the field, so they're not going to commit and risk losing their current job to come with us.
And that's fair, and I'm trying to just assess kind of, are there, kind of gets to Commissioner Piercy's questions as well, is there enough of a pool out there to say, yes, we can hire someone who can establish a solid vision for where this where Rutherford County wants to go with this, or are we going to have to wait, not to put words in anyone's mouth, but are we going to have to wait a year or two or three and essentially have made a deal, you know, to spend a lot of money, maybe make money, maybe not. You know, it's kind of one of these things where budgets by associations for these run 3-4 million. Y'all are budgeting, I'm guessing, a whole lot less.
Initially.
And so
yes.
I'm trying to sort out that differential as well.
Sure.
So the pathologist and the difference in the budget, okay, in terms of where it goes.
I'm going to add one thing. You'd asked me earlier about the cost and what kind of the profit loss, surplus, deficit would be. The one thing that I didn't include based on a super conservative basis would be income from any other county. I didn't mention that, and because to me, if the numbers work without that, then that's a conservative approach. The other thing is we would get a set number. Denise can tell you more about that specific number. We would get a set number per autopsy. I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I think we also get a set number for also infant or adolescent autopsies. I didn't include that either because as a conservative approach, if the numbers made sense, again, that would be as we grew. I didn't want to include that revenue. I was trying to keep a very apples to apples. What are we spending now versus what would the new cost be? And so I just want to mention that because it is worth mentioning. It's not a small amount of money, but it's not going to cover the entire cost either. But we do get we'd get several thousands of dollars from the state automatically, even if it was just the way I understand it, just from our autopsies as a county. Denise can correct me. I just didn't mention that a minute ago.
Okay, so we open our doors. There's a budget of $3 to $4 million according to industry standards. We're going to spend a whole lot less and generate savings. Okay, but I'm trying to reconcile all these numbers.
Sure. Well, certainly. I mean, they're looking at if we're doing a regional forensic center servicing all those counties originally. We're talking about initially just doing Rutherford County. So that's why our budget will be different. Once we're doing all those counties, the cost is going to be for additional staff, additional testing. So if that number gets to that projected number or recommended number by SWIG MDI. But essentially, at that point, providing service for other counties, if we're looking at what that 1,000 autopsy number, so those counties would be paying or sharing in the cost of those operational costs by paying a fee for the service, just like the other regional forensic centers are offering for the counties they surround. So as Michael said, if we just stuck with Rutherford County, we're looking at a break-even approach, but that's without looking at the additional revenue that would be coming from the state, a reimbursement schedule that would pay us per autopsy $150, for an infant autopsy $1,250, and a toxicology share reimbursement. So we're not even looking at that at this point. If we were to offer services, that budget goes up because our staffing goes up, which is about 80% of the operational cost.
So how many autopsies can a doctor do in a day?
Well, it's not necessarily per day. They, for name accreditation standards, they're restricted to 250 a year or 325 equivalencies. So if they're doing external exams or partial autopsies, there's a certain number, typically 3 to 5 would equal one autopsy.
So the 1,000 people you were talking about, or autopsies, would take us 3.5 more doctors to cover that.
Right, but those 1,000 autopsies, we're not looking at projecting that Rutherford County would be doing 1,000 autopsies. That would be with the other counties coming to us to that service. So essentially, you don't invest in those other doctors or the other staff until we know that we have commitments from those other counties for doing their service for them. So at the moment, the priority is Rutherford County. It will always remain Rutherford County. So that, that budget would go up if other counties come to us, but the other counties are essentially paying for those increase in staff and increase in costs.
So the total budget you're expecting is about $800,000 the first year.
I ran because I'm not an expert in this field, so I ran based on a budgetary approach. I think it'd be closer between $1 million and $1.2 million. Is based on what I'm seeing for utilities, a contract pathologist, some additional miscellaneous costs, and that's where I kind of got that based on FY27. We'd be approximately 1.2 to 1.3 million on projected transport costs and autopsy costs. So that's where I'm That's kind of the number I came up with. I don't know if Denise, I think hers was similar, very, very close.
Does that include the opportunity cost of almost, what is it, $700,000?
Well, I think that depends on what interest rates do. So no, but also I think at the same time, we would all have to agree on which present value number to pick on that, right? I mean, I don't know what the Fed will do next year. I don't think they'll go up. I guess they could. But also, I'm not sure what the autopsy costs will do. So I think we could add that in there, but I have not taken into account that present value number just because even this month they dropped 8 basis points.
1.2, 1.3 minus how many autopsies times $1 million. So 1.2. So we've lost a couple of $200,000-300,000. If you take all in cost plus opportunity cost, we're $200 or $300 in the whole year one.
Okay, I think I'm sorry, Commissioner, I think we're forgetting that we have the local office too. The forensic center would combine the local medical examiner's office, their staff, their costs, their expenses, into that facility. So we're not just looking at the $1 million we're expending on autopsies, we're also looking at our local costs, which is 2 separate budgets. So when you combine them, it is less. Essentially, if you're looking at $500,000 to staff our office here, plus the $1 million that's going out, you're looking at $1.5 million getting expended now, not just $1 million. We're going to have both, but it combined. So those 2 budgets should combine too.
I hear what you're saying. Would it be possible to put that in a spreadsheet so we could actually see it and kind of analyze it a bit more? And I do want to be very sensitive to Commissioner Gooch's point that generally speaking, I think it's a good idea. The question I have is timing. I know it's been worked on for a long time. If we already had a letter of intent subject to this funding or something along those lines with a forensic pathologist, something like that, because I hear what you're saying, nobody wants to leave their job, but there's ways around that. We could find one, put together a letter of intent, have it conditional based on funding, and then sign somebody up. And then we would have a vision and someone who could actually lead the group. I'm a little concerned. I haven't heard that we have had communications with the folks that I asked about in property management. The legislature, the state legislature, could we get a grant? Maybe not this cycle. I'm sure not this cycle, but next cycle for $10, $15 million? I don't know the answer to that question. Could we, put together some kind of written agreements with some of the other counties, with Meharry, with MTSU? Okay, maybe some of the state folks. I don't know. That could, step in and provide additional resources, because from what I'm hearing, we're going to it alone at this point. Until such, there's a little bit of state reimbursement, I get that. But we're basically going it alone until we get a forensic pathologist lined up, we get some other things, kind of ducks in a row, we find somebody. I didn't hear the answer, I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. Who's going to run this? Is it, you mentioned, Dr. Kennedy mentioned Vanderbilt, Forensic Medical, a couple other places. What's the plan there, I guess?
It would be a county-run operation. Knox County is a county-run operation. Hamilton County is a county-run operation. Forensic Medical is a for-profit company contracted with Davidson and running a for-profit organization. Vanderbilt not in the business of forensic pathology. They have a pathology department, but they don't have forensic pathologists on staff. So Vanderbilt, I'm not sure where Dr. Kennedy, although I respect his opinion and his interest, and I'm glad he started his email with, I support the Rutherford County project, but Vanderbilt isn't an option, so I'm not sure where that came from. But it's a county-run operation. We would have the forensic pathologist, essentially with the investigators. I mean, it's...
So who would be leading it until we got a forensic pathologist on board and up and running with a clear vision? Who would be running it until that point?
Well, myself, but I will tell you, I consult regularly with the state medical examiner, the other regional forensic centers. We're not going blind on the design and engineering and architectural plans. We have a consultant group, which I know that Bart Klein will elaborate on in a little bit, but MWL, their specialty is forensic facilities. They are used to dealing with the name accreditation process, so we're making sure we are following the name accreditation and inspection process so that we will pass. So there is a lot of different consultancies going on, but we can't offer a forensic pathology position until we have a clear plan and we've broken ground on a facility. So it's a little chicken and egg at that point, but no, this will be would be a county-run operation. Otherwise, we'll be back in the same boat we are now. And again, as I appreciate the Commissioner's opinion that this is not just for cost savings. I think that's an added benefit, and it should be something that's a consideration of the Budget Committee. You know, the plan is to make sure that we're offering a efficient, sustainable, cost-effective, but respectful manner in which to provide this public service to our county.
Thank you, and I appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate Commissioner Gooch's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And you said it better than I did, Dr. Martin. You said it better than I did.
No, I appreciate it, though. So thank you.
Hold on for a moment. Chairman Harris.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. First a statement, then a question. I've been a commissioner going on 7 years. I've heard this every year. The person that I feel that is most responsible for this is Pettis Reed. And he didn't get mentioned when Eric was talking. I wanted to make sure he gets mentioned because he's really fought hard for this. I have some questions. My first question is, you made a statement that our autopsies keep going up. So who is responsible for making contracts with autopsy or Nashville? Who is responsible for doing those contracts?
No county is required to have a contract with any one facility. They are able to go to any one of the 5, but it's just so happens that Nashville is our closest, so logistically it makes sense for us to go there. So but the forensic center, forensic medical, decides on their costs.
So would it not have been advantageous for us to have a contract with Nashville so that we could curtail these increases in autopsies?
Well, that would not alleviate the issues we have with them. So a contract was suggested by Dr. Lee, the CEO and president of Forensic Medical, but that would essentially negate any choices that we have. It would not relieve the issues we're experiencing, and it certainly would not resolve the issues identified in the feasibility study. So we could lock in a cost, but that would only lock it in for a temporary amount of time. Once we've gone past our window of opportunity to build this facility and have an option to do what I believe the public service, do it correctly and do it right, and then they could jump that price up as soon as that contract expires. But again, it does not alleviate all the issues that have been identified both by the law enforcement agencies, ourselves, and the other investigative agencies that that have identified concerns and issues, and it wouldn't change the facts that are identified in the feasibility study.
So how many autopsies did we do last year?
325, I believe.
You're going to have 2 pathologists.
Well, we'll have one full-time.
We do 150.
Yeah, one full-time, and we would contract with at least 2 other forensic pathologists, which Michael has already budgeted in for.
Okay,
It'd be a per autopsy without having to pay them benefits or full-time package.
I was looking at your report you gave us, and Hamilton County is no longer taking anybody but Hamilton County.
Hamilton County's always only ever taken Hamilton County. Hamilton County has only always taken Hamilton County. Shelby County is the one that changed.
But Hamilton County said they're closing because they can't hire pathologists. That was in your study.
It's not closing. Shelby County has stopped offering service to any
No, I'm talking just Hamilton County.
Hamilton County hasn't
It said
closed.
they can't find anybody to hire for a pathologist.
I think you're confusing it with Shelby County. Hamilton County hasn't changed. In fact, they're in the process of building a bigger facility as we speak.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll get that and read it. How much does a pathologist make?
From a low end in state of Tennessee, 200,000 to up to 300,000.
Okay.
So it varies.
Any other questions from anybody on the committee? I've got a couple of comments, but if you'd like to speak first, that'll be fine, Eric.
Just briefly, Commissioner Harris, you're absolutely right. The mayor's office has consulted multiple times with Commissioner Pettis-Reed, and it was my intention, I have a note here, that once we finished with the presentation that we have given in the previous committees, I was going to ask that Commissioner Pettis-Reed be given the opportunity to speak to this matter. So you're 100% correct. He has been instrumental in pushing this forward for years and years and years, much before I got here, and so we have consulted with him quite a bit.
Okay, you said you wanted to speak after she finished?
No, that was all I was going to say.
That's all you've got to say? All right, and anyone else speaking?
Next, we would have Bart Klein to come up and give us a brief PowerPoint presentation of the building.
All right, Bart?
Hello, Bart Klein with Klein Sweeney Associates. The proposed design of the facility. So first, Klein Sweeney Associates, we are one of the architects on the project. We are teamed with MWL, McLaurin, Wilson, and Lowry. They do nothing but forensics labs. In fact, we've had a relationship with them for about 20 years. Our last project was the TBI headquarters in Nashville. They're experts in their field. In addition, our mechanical, plumbing, and electrical engineer is Phoenix. They specialize in healthcare type labs. Our structural engineer is TRC. Our civil engineer is SEC. Our fire protection engineer is ILCA, IS Engineering. And then our low voltage and AV is Dewberry. The Forensic Center is the building in blue. It's located in Smyrna, in between the Convenience Center and the old admissions building, adjacent to Weakley Lane. The design of the site and placement was done in a way to allow this existing property to accommodate future growth or future county needs in this part of the county. So we were very conservative on how we approached the property design. The building in blue, as you can see, I Street on the front is the entry into the forensics facility. As you enter in that, the public would enter at the front of the building, and then at the back would be the entry for the deceased and staff. To the right, you see a future space for a future county office building, whatever that may be, and then below that you see the EMS station. This also includes rework of the county clerk's office and future parking. As we look at the building, it's a very simple design building. This is always form follows function. I will tell you the medical cadaver lab is very much like an operation room. It's a very complicated structure. But when you look in orange, that is the lab spaces. In blue is the admin functions. And in the bottom is where they bring in the deceased, and that's basically a sally port. This building is designed for 50 years. But we've designed for expansions on both sides. You see the white box to the left and right, that's for future expansion to the autopsy side and to the admin side. This shows, the ghosted image shows where the future expansion would go in case that happens. The facility is masonry, structure, steel, brick. It's very hardy materials, made to take abuse, made to work 24 hours a day type facility. These are some images. So if I look at image 3, this is where the public would come to have their bereavement time, to meet with the people and the professionals. Image 2 is an area outside of the side of the building where the employees could go and take bereavement and eat lunch outside. Image 5 shows the overall front of the project. Image 4 shows the back of the project where the entry of the deceased come and leave, as well as employees. So currently, we have been going through a GMP process with RC Matthews. We went through a competitive CM at risk, and we had 3 different contractors that submitted. RC Matthews was selected because they were one of the only 3 that have done a medical cadaver lab. This same process is the same process that we have been managing for the public health and safety facilities. Some of you familiar with that process. The project cost will be a not to exceed cost of $15 million. We will have a final GMP by the 10th of next week. So this number that you see at the bottom of 15 in the contingency right now you see of 783. Right now we're at roughly 14.9 in a contingency of 450. So we're looking really good. We're planning for mistakes, and for, you know, as you guys know, construction is kind of ebb and flow, so we're managing that process well. Any questions about the building or the process?
You're recognized, Commissioner Harris.
Are you going to work with the PBA on this if we approve it?
If I'm requested to.
Okay. Well, it won't go through me unless it is.
I do have a question there. Well, I'll hold off on that. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
So is there already a contract manager?
Yes.
So what role would PBA play, if any?
Very similar to the role they play now. So when the public safety buildings went to the PBA, the contract manager was interviewed at the beginning, but already pretty much there, because those projects were going to be hard bid under that last administration. As you remember, they sent it to the PBA. So they meet monthly basis, and we have meetings in site, and they basically make sure that the architect and the engineers and the contractor are all working on the best behalf for the county. So they are a third-party, unconflicted, I guess you would say, group that basically makes sure everybody's playing the game and taking care of the county the best possible.
So what's the role of the existing GC or
well, the CM at risk
project manager?
It's no different. So the construction manager at risk that was hired is no different than American hired to do the public safety. It went through the exact same process. It would just transfer over if that would be a request of the county.
But doesn't the construction manager at risk take all the risks? So I'm not sure what the additional
it's no different. So
aspect of what PBA would contribute, except fees, potentially. Okay, so, well, if it's okay with you, we'll go to Michael.
There is a difference. The way that statute works, when the county hires a CM at risk, that construction manager per statute does have to bid this project, openly bid it. I believe it's twice before the construction manager, him or herself, or that company can partake in the construction. That law is a little bit different once this project goes to the PBA. Typically, we would not, if we were going to send a project to the PBA, we don't hire the construction manager beforehand. Typically, the PBA interviews those and they select. The county, in this case, went through purchasing committee, I believe. I think it was last year sometime, could have been a year and a half ago. I'd have to look. I don't go to purchasing every week. But in this case, so there is a little bit of state law change there when it comes to, if we were going to send it to PBA, we probably should not have went through purchasing and selected a CM at risk there. Typically, that's the difference between PBA in the county handling a project. Since we're already under contract with R.C. Matthews, you're telling the PBA they have to use that construction manager. They don't have a choice. I guess they could hire a second or third one, but they would have to have the funds to do so. I guess there's nothing that restricts them to that. But there is a difference there procedurally that if it was going to PBA, on the public health and safety buildings, we sent those before we wouldn't have sent it to purchasing and put it out to bid. But in this case, we would have to look into, the state law is very clear on the CM at risk here, bids it twice. I believe it's twice, Bart. And if they don't get any bids or satisfactory bids, then they can partake in the construction. It's pretty clear on that. So there are some structural changes there. And of course, some fee differences, but I think that's the big difference of the route that you've normally seen would go to PBA on the public health and safety buildings versus this one. They don't, when the PBA selects their construction manager, they don't come back to the commission or back to purchasing for that approval per se. They select that based on the interviews that the PBA does, and of course we pay a pre-construction fee and things like that through that.
And it was, all the trades are competitively bid, so one thing I have been very happy with the CM is we've had 4 to 5 trades in every piece. So for instance, like the site package, I think we had 7 site bidders. So we've gotten really good coverage. So everything is hard bid through this channel.
So I just want to go back to Michael very briefly. So you're saying PBA, there's already a manager, PBA comes in, PBA would have to hire another manager, or did I mishear that?
No, I'm saying the county is already under contract through the purchasing committee with R.C. Matthews, meaning the county has selected its construction manager by contract. I believe we had several people that the purchasing committee looked at their bids or their request for proposal. I believe it was 3 or 4. Since we're already under contract, in this case, you would be telling the PBA they have to use this construction manager, and I guess there's nothing that would stop them from requesting another one. I don't think they would. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying. But in this case, we're already under contract with R.C. Matthews to the best of my knowledge.
Any other questions from the committee for Bart? Our tech people that are watching, I want to point out something. Anytime Michael turns on his mic over here, it's causing a feedback on Commissioner Irving's mics. And I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. I asked Michael to shut his off a little while ago, and your mic cleared up. Anyway, we need to get that problem taken care of. And it's not you, Commissioner Irving, so I believe it's got to do with feedback between those 2 microphones.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bart.
No, I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Johnson, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Dr. Lee, the CEO of the Nashville Forensic Center, I believe he's in the crowd. Would it be in order to suspend the rules? And
you'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to have him speak?
Hear his thoughts on this.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? And a second. All in favor of suspending the rules, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Dr. Lee, you're welcome to come up.
Mr. Chairman, while the speaker's coming up, I would just like to say that the audio system has been failing for about a month. Our IT department is on it, and the whole system is in the process of being upgraded, so bear with us.
Thank you, Chairman.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Feng Li, and I'm the CEO and Chief Medical Examiner for Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County. Thank you all for inviting me to speak. I want to start by saying that Rutherford County and us are very good, had a good relationship. As a matter of fact, Mr. Martin and 2 investigators were trained in our office, and then they work for the Rutherford County. And I want to start by saying that we cover multiple counties in the state of Tennessee, and we have 13 forensic pathologists in our office. And I had statistics. For the last 5 years, we accepted 1,826 cases from Rutherford County, and our average days of cases is about 60 days. And that I want to give the perspective because the last 5 years include the years of the pandemic. And 2024, from January 1st to 2024 to December 31st, the whole year, we accepted 335 cases from Rutherford County. And average days is about 45 days, so average day. And our company established 1997, and we are fully accredited by the National Association of Medical Examiners. It's a short for name. And there are 5 regional centers, as I said in the picture. And prospectively speaking, there are only less than 800 board-certified forensic pathologists in the entire country. It is a very, very few pathologists. And so I also want to say that, we charge $2,500 a case, and other centers may, as I said, Ms. Martin said, Knox County maybe $1,900, but other counties they charge $3,000 a case. If it is complicated, it will be $4,000 a case. For example, homicide in children and stuff. And also they would charge additionally to extra, for example, toxicology, additional toxicology, anthropology, and so on. Also, I want to give you a number. In the last completed cases in 2023, our entire office performed 3,233 cases or autopsies. And basically, that's the counties we cover. And recently, we added counties from western Tennessee because Memphis office, they cannot handle the cases. So they ask the surrounding counties to transport the cases to us. And they also told us, even though they will reopen in Memphis, but they will stick with us. So that speaks for volume. And we provide the best service to the counties. And you can see that the pictures of the leadership, our pathologists, and our facilities, and autopsy facilities, and so on. And I would invite everybody, welcome to visit our office. And since I spoke last time, and we had some issues raised, for example, case delayed or communication. So I've already did some research and investigation. The case we specifically had for this child was a 3-month-old infant, and eventually we had detected methamphetamine in the system. So I needed more information to how the drugs got to the blood. So we had to do more investigation and delayed. And although there's no excuse for long, but sometimes the complicated cases would take a long time. And but average-wise, 45 days is our finishing the cases. And this is well within the name accreditation. And also, I want to improve the communication between the law enforcement and our investigators, because we don't want to waste law enforcement precious time. And maybe in the future, we'll have a more close communication and to reduce the waiting and other wasted time, and will be that. So, and also I want to say that the cost for a forensic pathologist or the salary, I haven't had anybody's, for a chief forensic pathologist, I would say minimum $300,000, maybe more, plus and benefit and other things will be close to $400,000 if you order a high-quality forensic pathologist. Thank you. for the opportunity, and I want to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Dr. Lee? We appreciate you coming by to give us this information. Commissioner Gooch, you recognized?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lee. So you do about 3,200 autopsies a year?
Yes.
And according to these numbers, about 10% come from Rutherford County?
Yeah, it's about
Okay. If you were just to lose that 10%, how many pathologists would you need to lay off?
Maybe one.
So that one person will be looking for a job.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think your math's impeccable.
Let me just say, Mr. Chairman, that's a pro at work.
There you go. Any other questions for Dr. Lee? And guys, tell you what, switch these mics off when they're not in use. I don't know what the feedback problem is here, but we've got a problem. Dr. Lee, thank you for coming. We appreciate your time.
Dr. Lee, I'd like to ask you, do you have a copy of that for the record? I need a copy of that for the record, please. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Eric?
At this time, I would like to call Captain Todd Sparks. He is over the Investigations Division of the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department.
Chairman, good evening, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight on behalf of law enforcement. Representing the Sheriff's Office, of course, but I'm also representing law enforcement within this county, as I've spoken with my counterparts multiple times about this issue over the years. This is not unique to the Sheriff's Office. This is a law enforcement issue throughout the county. And I can tell you with confidence that my counterparts at those other agencies certainly support this project as well. I'll keep my experience and credentials pretty brief because it's pretty simple, but I'm in my 30th year at the Sheriff's Office, 27th year in investigations. In that 27 years, I've worked literally hundreds of death investigations, whether it be as a lead investigator, an assist, or in a supervisory capacity. So I've seen just about every form you can imagine in that capacity. What I just wanted to talk to you briefly about tonight is some of the issues that we faced in law enforcement with our situation with forensic medical. Communication, you've heard about that. Communication is one of the big problems. And when I talk about communication, I'm talking about both pre and post autopsy. Communication is pretty important for us on the front end. With the medical examiner's office, we need to find out when an autopsy is going to be conducted, certain things that we might be looking for, and those kind of things. The issues we've had with communication have often dealt with the fact that we've been told an autopsy will be conducted at a certain time. We get there and it's already been conducted. Or we get there and it's been pushed back. Now we have investigators that are stuck in Nashville for several hours that should be working on that investigation back home. Travel time's a big problem, obviously. I'm sure everyone in here has driven back and forth to Nashville and know what that can be like, especially if we have to deal with an early morning situation or a late evening situation. Causes a lot of wear and tear on vehicles, causes a lot of fuel to be spent, causes a lot of overtime hours. Post communication has been a problem. Once an autopsy is completed, we're in a holding pattern oftentimes. When we respond to a death investigation, it's not always cut and dry. There are often times that we get to a scene and there's no obvious signs of foul play, there's no obvious signs of death, so we have to rely on information from the medical examiner's office. The longer that goes on, the longer that delays our investigation. You've heard about an infant death referred to. We spoke about that. Commissioner Harris, I believe, you've seen some information. I've written about that recently. The 3-month-old infant death, we didn't learn of the cause of death for 4 months into that investigation, which was methamphetamine toxicity. That's a homicide investigation. Dr. Lee, and I have the utmost respect for you, Dr. Lee, that information, as far as the methamphetamine being in the blood, I understand that takes a little bit more investigation on their part, but the delay in communicating that information to us causes a significant delay in our investigation to even know that there's a homicide circumstance. 4 months in this particular case. So we're 4 months behind the curve that we could have been on 3 months ago because that information was available. It just was not communicated to us. Overdose deaths. A lot of times we respond to scenes, there's no obvious signs of death. Most recently in the last year, we've had a couple of young adult males, no obvious signs of death. Both of them returned as overdose deaths. 3 to 4 months, 4 to 5 months. We're way behind the curve on conducting those investigations into what would be a second-degree homicide. We're not a priority, and I understand that, but Commissioner Irwin, to your comment about when is time, when is it time for us to do this? Is it when we become the 3rd largest county in the state of Tennessee and we're doing 600 autopsies a year? When is the right time to be delayed 4 or 5 months in an investigation that's a homicide of an infant? When is the right time to get that going? For us in law enforcement, that time was years ago. We're that far behind the curve. So I would say the time is now. The time is past, and we are way behind the curve on getting that done. As we've talked about, it's not a new concept. We've talked about this for years. We have confidence in having a forensic center here with the communication and the professionalism and the efficiency in conducting our investigations because we work with Denise Martin now on a regular basis. We rely on her regularly when we have concerns about an investigation. There's been multiple times where we've picked up the phone to Forensic Medical and tried to get hold of death investigators there to get information on a case. We can't even get a return phone call. There's been many times in the midst of investigation I've texted or called Denise Martin, and she's answered right away. We don't have an issue with communication in this county with our death investigations right now. This would only provide more effective, more efficient communication, more effective, more efficient investigations. And that's our ultimate goal here, is to provide for those citizens. For me, having a daughter who's considering going into this field, I think what a tremendous opportunity it would be for Rutherford County to partner with MTSU or some of these educational institutions later on down the road and know that my daughter or someone else's daughter or son could be a part of something like that right here in our county, and we're not having to outsource those things. Anyway, I know you guys have heard a lot of this already, and I don't want to be long-winded. I'm just here to say, from a law enforcement standpoint, from a taxpayer in this county, from a citizen and a lifelong citizen of this county, this is past due. And we're not getting any better, not in law enforcement, not in the EMS community. We're not getting any better by passing it along and waiting, trying to figure out when the time is right. The time to get better is today for us. So I'll be happy to entertain any questions if you have any.
Said all the agencies that you work with are in support of this?
Yes, sir.
How many have talked to you about going to their municipalities or agencies and asking for funding?
I don't have anything to do with the funding aspect of that, sir.
Well, I think it's time that we look at funding also.
From an investigative standpoint, the support is there.
I understand that.
We're all suffering from those same issues.
Well, I want to make something clear here. I am in favor of us having a forensic center. What I'm also in favor of is not growing a facility that's going to overburden our taxpayers. All right? That's important to me also. Yes, it's important that you get good information. You know, it's hard to hear that you're making calls and not getting answers. You know, that's unacceptable, period. You know, it's unacceptable for a lot of things, you know, the travel and things like that. But everybody here keeps mentioning time. Well, y'all have had a lot of time, 14 years you've been asking to work on grants. We got basically turned down from a grant from the state. But I haven't heard of any other grant applications. I haven't even heard that you've gone to Christie Houston and asked for money. They've always been helpful to us. I haven't heard MTSU or Meharry mentioned at all. And if it's time to do this, why do I not have all that information in front of me? That's what's frustrating to me. You know, you need help, and I want to give it to you, but I also need help paying for this. Instead of asking it for people that are on fixed incomes all the time to cough this up, you know, I'm a little tired of that too. So it's time we get answers all the way around. Now, somebody comes up here and throws some budget numbers in front of me, I want to see the proof behind them. Just saying one of the statements Denise made, and I like Denise, don't misunderstand me, but she's saying there's going to be $200,000 or $300,000 profit there. And I think she made that statement tonight. Well, I don't see that, you know, especially with the numbers that we're putting out there. Come to me with the facts. Come to me with what it's going to cost. Whether I support it or not, if it's passed by this full commission, this budget committee and myself has got to figure out how to pay for it. And we're going to lean on our citizens to do that. Of course, this is something we're doing for our citizens. But I want the information truthful. I want it fully put out in front of me. And I want to know why. I haven't heard anything about Meharry. I want to know why I hadn't heard anything about partnering with MTSU. I want to know why we hadn't contacted Christie Houston and asked for grants or other grant opportunities. You know, when this was first floated to us a year or two ago, we were told that this would not come to us asking for money unless there was a grant. That's what we were told. Guys, y'all want to continue? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Chairman, I can answer one small part of what you were just asking. I did reach out to Christie Houston. We were told no.
When?
I would have to go back and look at the emails. It was more than a year ago.
And what was the specific request?
Assistance with funding the construction of a forensic center in Rutherford County.
Okay, thank you. That's the first I've heard of that. Thank you.
I would like to recall Denise Martin up for just a moment, please.
Denise, in all fairness here, I do want to keep this as short as possible, and we'll get a vote one way or the other here in just a minute.
Certainly, sir. So I just wanted to address a few things that were just stated. I appreciate Dr. Lee's attendance again at our committee meeting. I would have preferred to hear from the doctor who took the Hippocratic Oath rather than a CEO, president, and part owner of a for-profit company trying to dissuade us from making the right decisions for our county that are providing an essential public service. So a few things I want to address. He did mention the number of autopsies his office is performing, but did not mention the external cases in addition to that. Mentioned about communication. I have great respect for the investigators that are working at the Nashville office, many of whom I worked with in the past. I think they have been given an impossible job, both dealing with Davidson County investigations, They deal with Williamson County investigations, and then they have to be the liaison for 62 other counties. So it's a lot of work. It's a very high volume, and it's essentially, quite honestly, an impossible task to be able to communicate efficiently when you're dealing with that kind of ridiculous volume. Not to knock the investigators there, they are doing a valiant job, just they've been given an insurmountable task to achieve. What hasn't been mentioned is that they are in the smallest facility as a regional forensic center in the state, with the exception of Hamilton County, and yet they're doing 2/3 of the state there. High volume that comes along with a risk for mistakes. Doing it in a 20,000 square foot building when you are dealing with 2/3 of the counties in the state of Tennessee, it comes with great risk. He mentioned that they have 13 full-time forensic pathologists. What he hasn't mentioned is that some of them are staffing facilities out of state at the forensic medical facilities out there. So again, limits our access to those physicians and takes them well over the recommended caseload for a physician when they're doing cases at the Nashville facility, as well as potentially cases in Kansas and Texas. So again, the higher volume, the higher the risk for mistakes. He talked about completing cases. I've reviewed 5 years' worth of our cases. I've audited them. There are 3 different timelines in those cases. One where the case is completed in their system. Presumably that's the number that the name inspection and accreditation get. So the case completes out of the system. Typically that's the time when the death certificate is updated. That does not mean that the autopsy report is uploaded. That could be a completely different date. And then there's the date that the autopsy report is actually available to the DA, the law enforcement agencies, the medical examiner's office, and the families. And about 50% of the cases, it seems, there is a delay of anywhere between a week and 5-6 weeks in some situations where that case report is actually released. So to me, case completion is when we have that autopsy report in our hands so that we can move forward with our law enforcement investigations. The families can close out their estates if they've got insurance questions. So there is a great discrepancy in the times when they are counting their cases completed and also when those reports are available. I'll also point out a different problem that is of great concern. When that death certificate gets completed, that leads the potential to others to have the information that law enforcement still don't have. That cause and manner of death statement becomes available on that death certificate. So again, it's putting our law enforcement agencies well behind the time that they should be progressing on with their cases, and in certain situations could lead a person of interest or a suspect in a criminal investigation to have the upper hand and have the information of what the experts, the forensic pathologist, has deemed as cause and manner of death. Dr. Lee mentioned that they have a flat fee of $2,500 compared to Knox County, for example, who does charges $1,900. So that essentially means that we are paying on every single case for tests and other potential examinations that we may never need and rarely need. A standard autopsy should include the physical part of the autopsy, toxicology, and that's typically what we're doing. There obviously are some complicated cases. Infant cases could require more, but obviously we're doing it with the vast majority of cases that do not require these additional tests, and yet every single case, that number has been factored into it. We had the opportunity to send a case to Knox County. Our county medical examiner specifically requested them because they knew it was going to be a complicated case. That case cost us $1,900, and I will tell you they did a very, very complex communication with us and a very thorough autopsy report findings, utilized several different other testing agencies to get us the answer we needed on that particular case.
Denise, let me ask you a question. I've been informed on that particular case, and I was told that it took a long time to convince them to take that, and that it would be almost impossible to get more cases sent to them.
They are not wanting to compete for our business, that's for sure. They are comfortable with the number that they are dealing with. I'm not suggesting that we send our cases to Knox County, but it didn't take a long time to convince them. They were very willing to help us, but they weren't doing it in a manner that they wanted to encourage us to send more. So they are comfortable with the cap that they have. They currently do have 21 counties that they service. They certainly don't want to take us on as an additional, so they weren't competing for business. So that $1,900 was their flat fee.
All right, thank you. Please go ahead and wind up.
Okay, we'll do so. I just want to mention that we have, like I said, I did a full audit of all the cases we've been doing for the last 5 years. There has definitely been inflection points as we ramped up to this meeting, as case completion. And again, that completion date is a little misleading on cases. I will tell you, there was a case completed recently that was a drug-related death investigation. So our point of sending the case for autopsy, obviously what the interest was in what those toxicology results would be. Couldn't quite understand how the case could get completed out so quickly. Reviewing the case, they didn't even send out tox, which should have been standard. So that $2,500 that's supposed to include our standard autopsy didn't even include tox on a drug-related death investigation, which will now not hold up in court. So we have issues like that. I will tell you that the building and the storage is not of the capacity that we need. If 63 counties all ordered one autopsy on the same day.
I've already heard that for the third time. So like I said, wind this up. Let's wind it up.
I did have a point I wanted to follow with that, if I could just briefly. One of the commissioners mentioned the other day that they had a fear that we could hold cases in a refrigerated trailer if a mass fatality arose. One thing that I found out recently was that we still have cases, we still have decedents being held in a trailer, unsecured, not in a fenced area at the Nashville facility. So I just wanted to address that, since that was something that the commissioner brought up in recent committee meetings, and that needs to be addressed when we look at the capacity and the capabilities of the 20,000 square foot operation that's servicing 63 counties. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Would like to invite Mr. Reed up, or were you ready for him?
I have one very brief statement, Chairman P. While I had an opportunity to look, the email that I received from Ann Davis was received on October the 6th, 2023. It references in there a meeting that Mayor Carr had with her on July the 20th of that year. And just a brief statement from this is, after thorough discussion, the directors were in agreement that this particular proposal was not a fit for the Christie Houston Foundation. At this time, Chairman P., the final statements I have is, I think we have shown a need tonight. I hope that at least we have done that. The question then becomes paying for it. And in conversations with Michael and going on, I'm not going to make this long, I think we can pay for this project without the need to raise taxes or borrow money. At this time, Chairman P., I would call Commissioner Pettis-Reed.
Welcome, Chairman Reed. It's good to see you.
Commissioners, I try to be very as quick as I can. You've been here about as long as listening to President Trump the other night, but I will not take that long, I promise you. All I want to say is I'm here this evening representing our public safety community. They've asked for this for a number of years. You know, I've had the opportunity, and I appreciate Commissioner Harris mentioning my name a few minutes ago. Yes, I've been involved in this quite a bit. I've said time and time again that unless it affects your family, you really don't understand the importance of what it is needed here in Rutherford County. I didn't know a few nights ago that I was saying this to so many of you and bringing that to your attention, that this past Monday night it affected my family. That within my family we had a situation where a member relative to our family drove off the road, hit a tree. And of course, in that situation right there, an unexplained accident within the state of Tennessee, Tennessee Code annotated, means there is an autopsy required. And we're going through that right now within our family. That's the second time within my family I've had to go through this. Some of you may not realize in my early life, when I was young once, I was a scoutmaster. And if you've ever been a scoutmaster, you probably know what it is to be with those young men. And I call them young men. They become your sons. They become important to you. But I had a situation where a scout was involved in an accidental shooting. That situation there, and I was involved with that family right there. So I understand what's involved when a family has to go through this. You know, it's like the funeral. It's not the person that's died, it's the family that's involved that has to go through that and has to go through that length of time. Right here in this county right now, and you've heard the number of what we're having. I think it's important within Rutherford County we realize the fact that now we are larger than Chattanooga, and we've just been talking about Hamilton County and what they have there. It's time we take the reins now. The autopsies in Rutherford County are the responsibility of the county, not the municipalities that are located in this county. We're responsible for everything that happens within this county. Tennessee Code annotated tells us that is our responsibility. And that's why our number and our cost are continually going up and up. We think we can do a better job. Do you want to continue to be a part of the pink that's on this map? 53 counties, I believe, it's in here. And I got a problem with the fact that when you become among the quantity in here, you'll not be within the quality, where we have to continually wait for what we got to have the results. We've got detectives that have to wait and wait to solve the crimes at different times, and a lot of the times it puts us behind in what we've got to do. We've got families waiting. You can't say that autopsies are only for those individuals who are involved in crime. I know that for a fact. And it seems like every time you look at WGNS News, every night there's something here in Rutherford County. And it's going to continually be that. So that's why I think it's important that we're needing a forensic center here in Rutherford County. And I think we can do it in a costly way, in a way that's very cost effective here in Rutherford County, that'll be important and help the citizens of Rutherford County and take care of us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Reed. Any other questions or discussion from the committee? Hearing none, I will recognize a motion.
Before I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, if I can be recognized, but first I would like to ask Director Smith, what are the funding options that we have?
So we have a couple. I don't know if this is, I feel like it's not on. We have a couple. One would obviously be to borrow money. That would not be my preferred option just based on interest rates. I mean, I think we could get an advantageous one, but arbitrage rules with IRS, those are just hard to navigate around. But I think ultimately we have adequate fund balances to fund this, and I believe it came out of the other committees to use unassigned fund balance. However, my recommendation would be to use a mixture of unassigned fund balance and some committed and restricted funds to lower the use of unassigned fund balance. And specifically, we have leftover money where there was approximately $4.75 million left over, where there was money set aside for an emergency transfer station that's in a committed for capital projects account. So we could utilize that if this committee wished. That would be my recommendation. Additionally, we also have a little over $671,000 left for some old development tax money. Now, that money's there because we can only spend it on specific things. So we just have spent it down over the years since we have gotten rid of development tax and went to a school facilities tax. But there is $671,390.31 left of that. This would be an eligible expense for that. So my recommendation would be, if you wanted to fund this, would be to fund this with a reduction of $671,390.31 of development tax, a reduction of the $4.75 million that was set aside for an emergency transfer station, and that would leave $9,578,609.69 out of unassigned fund balance, and that would get you to the $15 million, I believe, that was requested.
How much did you say from the old development tax?
$671,390.31.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move forward with the Forensics Center project, recommending to the full County Commission using restricted funds from the emergency transfer station of $4.75 million, from unassigned fund balance of $9,578,609.65, and from the old development tax, $671,390.31.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Commissioner Sereno. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I want to put an amendment on his motion. I'd like to, with the approval of the Forensic Center, I want it to make sure that it goes through the PBA.
Commissioner, you'll have to add some money to this for that, please.
What do I need to add?
Well, I don't think I think you can have conjecture, but you're not going to have to know. You're not going to know exactly what he'd have to add.
No, I do not.
So, no, I don't know how this motion or this amendment would work.
You could add a conservative amount if you would like, that would be over, it would be returned, but it would have to be something.
I don't have no clue.
150,000.
It'd be less than that. I could look at what we spent on the last project and estimated.
Well, we're actually going to have a discussion. This is pertinent to your amendment with the PBA, and that's one thing I want to talk to them about is their cost. But maybe we'll have a little clearer picture there. So, as far as this amendment goes, let's see if we get a second on the amendment before we discuss it anymore. Do I hear a second on the amendment to include the PBA? Okay, motion dies.
And Mr. Chair, I'm not opposed to the PBA, but Health and Education sent a request directly to the full commission, and it did not include a PBA. And I think that if we did that from budget, then we would have two competing motions at the full county commission Thursday night. So my recommendation, I think it's a good idea, Commissioner Harris, that if this is approved, that it comes back through Public Works, Property Management, with those conversations with the PBA.
Did the motion from Health and Ed include Michael's recommendations for the funding mechanism?
No, just a positive recommendation to the full county commission.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion on the floor, which is to approve the Forensic Center at using Michael's figures of, I think, 4.75 million unassigned and 671,000 something.
I can reread them for the record if you'd like.
That's all right. I think Mark's got that. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
No.
Motion passes 4-3.
Okay, that would bring us to item 6, which is a discussion of funding for site work and construction of the project at Weakley Lane and I Street. And who's going to lead that? Is that Eric again? I've had a request for a break. I'm looking at the committees. Y'all want to take a break? Yeah. We're going to take 5 minutes. Sorry, guys.
A lot shorter than the last. I believe Michael will tell you specifically what we are requesting to do from a budgetary standpoint, and then Bart Klein will tell you about the project itself.
I can go ahead and, I believe they're requesting to shift, and y'all heard a little bit of this last month, but to shift the leftover funds that would have been spent on the Dell Webb Public Health and Safety Building, to shift this to the future EMS station, site work on Weakley Lane, I Street, for those cluster of projects that Bart's fixing to go over. And that amount right now is approximately $4.4 million. That amount will change once Plainview is done. Any leftover funds from Plainview will shift into this project. So I anticipate that amount going up a tad, although if there is some unexpected cost, which we don't anticipate at Plainview, matter of fact, I think that's coming in a little under what we budgeted, that would shift into this dollar amount. And that money is already in our capital projects fund.
A little bit about, I believe, what was presented previously to this commission. So we have had site contractors, I think over 7, looked at the site design. And then we've also had pricing from R.C. Matthews. And these are pricing for the work at the clerk's office, the expansion to the I Street paving, emission testing, new access drive, and the EMS station. So these numbers cover that work. Any questions about that?
Mr. Chairman, what kind of contract is this? Is this another one of these contracts?
It's under the same contract.
Is there already a project manager kind of a deal?
Yes.
So we have the same discussion we had about PBA on that one that we have on this one. Okay. And this is just for the site work, incrementally.
And the EMS station.
And the EMS station and whatever other site work. And then incrementally, depending on what happens at the commission level, the property would still be stubbed out, basically, and have utilities and everything to the property. So it would probably increase in value in any event. Is that a fair statement or no?
The truth of the matter is there's a need for all of these items, the forensics, the county clerk's office, and the EMS building. And so by having one contractor, you're saving on the general conditions and management costs across all projects. So it's all being handled at the best dollar value for the county.
Bart, are you saying you've already got a project manager for the proposed EMS station? How can you do that?
This is for
when
the
we
site.
haven't even seen that until this last month.
So the R.C. Matthews is selected for the forensics. They're providing the site work. It would be up to this commission if the EMS would go to another group or not. And the EMS building has not been designed at this time. So this cost was based off the exact EMS building they want to replicate that I believe is over by MTSU.
Forgive my density here. This contract is for the site work only that provides all the stub out, et cetera, for all the utilities, grading, et cetera, and has or does not have a contract manager, along the same lines as we were just discussing with PBA.
A portion of this has a construction manager. The CM at risk portion worked on the site layout for the forensics center. There has been no future funding provided for the county clerk addition of parking space, the EMS building, or anything else. that funding did not have design funding yet, so that they're asking for the design and the construction for both the EMS and that additional county clerk space. However, R.C. Matthews did do the site layout as part of their pre-construction services for the forensic center. So Bart is correct. This EMS station would be designed. The estimate for the quote of how to ask for the dollar amount was based on the EMS station over by MTSU. So you could lump that in with R.C. Matthews if you wanted into all of one site. You could choose a new construction manager. You may not need one since the bulk of the project is there. I think there's some flexibility there on the EMS piece and on the county clerk parking space addition piece.
And the engineering for all sites is within our contract, so that's done. The sites and utilities, not the building of the EMS.
Continue.
Any other questions?
Eric?
Thank you.
I would just request, as stated by Michael Smith, that we move the funding and proceed forward with this. Obviously, we would have to get someone to design and build the EMS station, but this would cover the site work, and we believe the funding would cover the EMS station and build out as well.
Okay, guys, you've heard the request. Do I hear any further discussion or a motion? Michael, I'm going to let you do that.
To summarize, they're requesting to shift the remaining funds that would have been for a Del Webb Public Health and Safety building. They want to shift that for site work and construction of a future EMS station, partial site work of the forensic center, and additional parking space for the county clerk building that's already down there on Weakley Lane. So that funding would be shifting projects. It's already in our capital projects fund as we speak. It's there now.
Will that be enough funds to finish the EMS building?
That, according to the quote that I've received from the mayor's office and Bart's office, yes.
I'll make the motion to do that.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. That takes us to item number 8, Ambulance Service Fund Budget Amendment and Transfer. We have 2 amendments. Would y'all like to do those both together? Yeah, I see a nod. Yes.
So the first one is to move money from patient charges into our refunds line item. That's some refunds that come back from overpayment to us from insurance companies. And then the second one is to move money from our health equipment line item, $21,000, into our contracts line item to complete maintenance of our CPR devices.
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah.
Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion carries. And next item up is item 9. Is Tina here? Ah, there you go. Item 9 was acceptance of the grant amendment for the 2014 Learning Grant.
Yes, good evening. I'm Tina Bigby, Director of Youth Services, and this is just, I'm requesting approval for an amendment to extend the grant for 1 more year with the end date of June 30th, 2026. and with an increase of $417,696. And these are pass-through funds. There's no match or...
So moved.
I have a motion to approve the grant extension and a second. Any discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinion?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 10. Steve, you got several to swing at here. First one is a general fund budget amendment for the jail.
Good evening. Steve Spence, Deputy Chief at the Sheriff's Office. This budget amendment appropriates money for the firing range repairs at the jail and the Sheriff's Office. This money was budgeted in the previous financial year, but rolled into fund balance due to a delay in the repairs. We planned to do this project last year, and our engineer, I had a family member to get sick, and we couldn't move forward with it, so we want to do it this year. Asking for $405,500 from unassigned fund balance, $405,500 from the contracted services, and placing $811,000 into our building improvements.
Okay, guys, you've heard the request. Are there any questions for Chief Spence? If not, I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Any questions on this?
Sir, who was the second?
What,
Sereno.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, what are the nature of the repairs?
The walls decaying, and we got 3 block walls. They're going to tear the walls down and replace it with panels, which are ballistic and soundproof. It should last us a whole lot longer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinion?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Please continue.
This amendment is being requested for the financial year 23 BGA Virtual Reality De-escalation Grant from the Department of Justice for the Sheriff's Office. The amendment will reallocate travel funds staff attended a less costly training to other supplies and materials for approximately 10 CRIT classes we plan to teach. This is a no-match grant and ends September 30th for 26. It's moving money within the grant, requesting $2,000 from the travel and placing it into our other supplies and materials.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinion?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. All right, please continue.
I have a grant request. We're requesting to apply for the Bureau of Justice Assistance Financial Year 25 Local Law Enforcement Crime Gun Intelligence Center Integration Initiative Grant. We plan on using the funds to purchase an integrated ballistic identification system. It will give us the capabilities to analyze shell casings from crime scenes and shell casings from weapons in our evidence room. Along with the ballistic identification system, we would use the funds to purchase license plate readers. These would be deployed in key locations in the county. This is a 3-year grant that requires no match. We're requesting $500,000. If awarded, we request the mayor to be able to sign and to accept.
Okay, again, this is they're asking to apply. Do I hear a motion or any further? I have a motion to approve. Second, Commissioner Johnson. Any further discussion? Commissioner Irving?
I just had a couple questions. I happened to catch a thing that caught my eye is these license plate readers.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk of, I mean, that's going to raise privacy concerns potentially, although it's probably in a public place, so it may not. Can you elaborate on what the license plate, how many of them are there going to be, what they're going to do, identify license plates, obviously, but I mean, beyond that, what are they going to be used for? Kind of give us a little more information on that.
Yes, sir. They'll be placed. Right now, we have license plate readers. They're not ours, but neighborhoods and the counties have them, and we're going to place them throughout the county at locations. If we have a crime in the area, we can pull those, the data, if we get a vehicle description, and it'll help us investigations.
Okay, and what kind of privacy-related safeguards are in place with respect to that information?
The information that's coming off these machines would be only for the sheriff's office.
Okay, and the sheriff's office has adequate protocols within it to make sure there are in other words, could the public access it? Probably not.
No, sir.
Okay.
Just for law enforcement.
So it's only law enforcement, only the sheriff's office, or law enforcement overall?
Law enforcement. If agencies have to have the same brand cameras, they can request, if they're doing an investigation. Right now, we depend on other agencies' license plate readers if we're doing an investigation for a crime. So we're allowed to access their equipment to get those tags.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify a few things on it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Please continue.
We were approved in August of 2023 to participate in the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy Recruitment Retention Grant. The grant is the no match that provides funds for new officers that qualify. We were approved for $200,000 for a 5-year period. The Tennessee Law Enforcement Academy has submitted a grant amendment increasing the ability to receive $750,000 in a 5-year period. We're requesting to accept this amendment and ask that the mayor be able to sign to accept if it's approved.
And there's no match on this, is that correct?
Correct, no match.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 14.
Is it okay to do 14 and 15? They go hand in hand together. Is that?
I don't see an objection from the committee. Continue.
We are requesting to apply for the Tennessee Highway Safety Office and Team Grant. These are no matching grants. The THSO grant pays for overtime and equipment for deputies working saturation and traffic enforcement. We were requesting $225,000. The Team grant pays for overtime and equipment for deputies working team driving education. We are requesting $20,000. We apply for these grants each year. They run from October to September. If awarded, we request the mayor to be able to sign and accept. There's no match.
Okay, you've heard it. I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Piercy, any discussion? Call roll, and this is on item 14 and 15.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chief. Item 16 is a general fund budget amendment for reappraisal. Michael.
I can speak to that, and then I noticed Trustee Ted Beatty also is here if you have questions for him. But what this is a budget amendment shifting from the property assessor's office to the trustee's office, and this will fund some technology software development for the trustee's office so that we can import changes in the tax roll mid-year so that we don't have to hand enter those changes. And then I also want to note, just for the record for the minutes, that we did have a contract that was forwarded to us from steering. That contract has been pulled by the third party. So that's why it's not on the agenda tonight. I didn't want anybody to think we took that off. But this budget amendment is still necessary to get that software developed so that we can import those tax roll changes.
Michael, you want to go ahead?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 17, general fund budget transfer for general sessions. Do we have anybody here from general sessions? Michael, I'm going to have you cover this in.
The General Sessions Court has requested to move money from their library books line item to their other contracted services. This will provide additional funds for substitute judges over at General Sessions Court, and this is already within their budget, so it's a transfer within their budget.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Commissioner Sereno, any discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 18, Annual Health Grant Contract Amendment. Michael, looks like you again.
So every year, this is something we see every year. This contract gets amended. Sometimes it's February, sometimes it's January. This year just happens to be March. But this contract gets amended every year with the state. We sign it beforehand, but they amend it based on the raises that we give our employees every year that work at the health department. Kind of as a reminder, we fund some of the employees, and then the state funds the majority of them. And so this contract is being amended to account for the raises that were given by the county.
Is there a dollar amount that we'll be liable for, Michael?
This one is no match on this one. I'm pulling the contract up to read the dollar amount. I believe the increase is approximately $223,000, $223,700. But this is the state's piece that they pay for every year for those employees. So there's not technically a match for this, although in a different section of the budget we do fund a certain section of employees that are ours. So I wouldn't call it a match, but in this case, there's no match to this 223.
All right. Any further questions or discussions? I'll entertain a motion if not. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 19, the lease of property at 11,381 Lascassas Pike.
Larry Farley, Fire Chief, Rutherford County Fire Rescue. I'm asking for your approval of the address 11381 Lascassas Pike. This is a fire station that was built toward the end of 1990 in Milton. And when Lascassas Volunteer Fire Department shut down, Harris and Penny Hooper, who lived in Milton, donated this property to the fire department to put a station out there to cover the Milton area. Whenever Lascassas dissolved and was no longer a fire department, it was in their agreement that this property would go back to the Hoopers. So I approached her and I asked her to lease that to us. We can put a truck out there, and I have a couple of volunteers that will respond to that truck to cover the Milton community. This will keep their insurance from going from about $1,200 a year to $3,600 a year. And the cost of that is I think $10 for the term of the lease, whether it be 10 or 20 years, and then to pay the property taxes on it, which I think is $531 a year, approximately. And of course, we will take care of the building and keep it up, and that's all she's charging us for it.
Does that cover insurance too, Larry? Didn't it?
I don't think so. I'm sorry. Insurance would be separate, but I've already talked to Ed, and he's already got that taken care of.
Chief, do you guys do a lot of remodeling?
No, matter of fact, I was part of the Lascassas Fire Department when we built that facility, and there's a big kitchen in there, but it's like a 60 by 40 metal building, and we're just going to maintain the heat and the air and make sure that temperature's controlled in there, and of course any maintenance might be done, we'll have to take care of that.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. I wanted to ask Michael if you would get with Chief Farley and see if we can nail down approximate price on this with the insurance and other coverage?
So-
we got this covered. I just want to make sure there's no.
I will ask the insurance carrier if they don't generally break out a cost per building for us, especially something this small. They bid on the insurance coverage as a whole pot. I will see if I can get an estimate from the company for this. For example, our insurance for property last year was like $3 million just the premium, but I don't know if it was narrowed down to the individual building, but I will check and ask for sure.
I'm worried about heat, air, maintenance.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you got other things involved there. I just want to make sure you're covered. All right, thank you.
I'll make sure it's included though, but I'll see if I can get us a dollar amount just for y'all so we know.
All right, thank you. All right, item 20, general fund budget amendment for the county garage. Michael, we're going to keep you busy.
So this amendment here, the county garage that does maintenance on our ambulances and things like that, they sold some tires on Gov Deals, and they were going to be potentially a little short on gasoline, so they're requesting to recognize that revenue from the sale of used tires on Gov Deals and appropriate that to their gasoline line item.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Did I hear?
Second.
And a second. Commissioner Irving, any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 21, presentation of debt service, cash flow, and debt management policy for the 3-star program. I finally spit that out. Go ahead, Mike.
So this doesn't require a vote, but every year we present this, and then the mayor's office turns this into the state so that we qualify for their 3-star program. But essentially what this is the second page is a cash flow projection of our debt service fund. That makes sure that we have adequate cash flows to pay our debt, as it explains, and we do. And then the final pages 3 through 20 is our debt management policy. And essentially, that it's how we calculate the minimum fund balance of our debt service fund, which we do meet. And but in this case, we have adequate cash flows to pay our debt.
You'll also have to present this at full commission, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Okay. Item 22, Regional Transportation Authority Relax and Ride.
So every year, y'all see this around this time. Sometimes it's March, sometimes it's April. This will be for next year's budget. There is no cost increase to this. It's the same as last year. It's for $49,220, but it's for the fiscal year 2026, July 1, 25 through June 30th, 2026. And it's to continue the bus route service between Nashville and Rutherford County here.
Okay, you've heard the request. This is something we do year after year, unless y'all decide not to. I have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Commissioner Irving, any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 23, Rutherford Opioid Board recommendations.
So this amendment stems from where the Rutherford County Opioid Board met this past Wednesday. This amendment includes $22,600 for movie theater and streaming media campaign for the Rutherford County Opioid Board. It's $12,350 for a 26-week campaign to run in 2 AMC theaters here in Murfreesboro and the theater in Smyrna. An additional $250 will be for the creation of a commercial, and then additionally $10,000 to Screen Vision will provide confluent streaming for up to 140 affiliate channels and 500 streaming apps. And so this came out of the opioid board this past Wednesday.
Of course, that comes from the opioid funds. That's not out of the county's direct budget. You've heard any discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion on that.
So move.
I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? And a second. Commissioner Gooch, any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. All right. This gets us down to item 24, discussion of the Public Building Authority. And I'm going to ask our chairman of the Public Building to come forward. Gary, welcome.
Chairman P. and Commissioners, thanks for letting me speak before you this evening. I was asked and invited by Commissioner P. about a week or two ago. Some of the folks here have already heard this speech, so to speak, at the building meeting last week regarding the maintenance of the building. So I don't mean to be redundant, but some of the folks have not heard it. My name is Gary Wisniewski. I'm the current chairman of the Rutherford County PBA. I've been a Rutherford County resident since 1989. Proud to serve as on the commission and for the citizens of this growing county. For those who don't know, the PBA is a 7-member board of residents who serve at the pleasure of the mayor and the commission as a sounding board and a manager for the construction of new buildings and construction projects. The current members on our PBA board are Tucker Markham, Don Lester, who is a remodeling contractor here in Rutherford County, Bob Warren, who is a structural and civil engineer here in Rutherford County, Sean Holt, a retired large framing contractor, Brad Fowler, a real estate professional, myself, Gary Wisniewski, as the chair with 36 years of experience in development and general construction here in Middle Tennessee. And we do have a current application that we turned into the mayor's office of an architect that would like to serve with us also. The PBA was started in 1996. The original purpose of the PBA, as stated in those bylaws, was to oversee managed projects in the county and to construct, acquire, improve, repair, renovate, extend, equip, furnish, operate, demolish, and maintain these projects in Rutherford County. Items regarding financing for this committee would be borrowing funds to carry out its purpose and respect to these projects, execute notes, bonds, loans, and leases for said projects, and more. The services that the board is currently providing is reviewing plans for projects, interviewing, selecting, and vetting contractors, reviewing and signing contracts with the contractors, reviewing and approving all pay apps and schedules, reviewing all project change orders, oversee and manage a project schedule, on-site meeting to monitor progress of the project, provide conversation with the mayor's office, the commission, the contractor, the budget office, engineers and architects regarding each project when necessary, and to manage all punch list items before the project is closed and handed over to Mr. Dodd and his team in property management so we can make sure that we're turning over a project and a property that can be well maintained and won't cost the taxpayers additional money. We currently have one project that we're managing, and that's the Plainview Public Health and Safety Building. The project is currently ahead of schedule and nearly $500,000 under budget. After our meeting this evening, it looks like we're in the direction more going towards about $800,000 under the budget that, of course, we return to the commission and to the constituents here in Rutherford County. In previous health and safety projects in Rockville, Kittrell, Lascassas, and Walter Hill, which are now closed projects and they all have COs, the PBA oversaw the return of $1.6 million to the citizens of Rutherford County. The breakdown of those are as follows. Kittrell was $135,000 and change. Rockville was $33,000 and change. Walter Hill was $629,000 and change. Lascassas was $849,000 and change. Once again, totaling $1,647,257. That is not to include Plainview because it's not finished yet. That'll add another $800,000. So we're anticipating $2.4 million returned back to the constituents of Rutherford County. At our last PBA meeting, not this one this evening, but last month, we had a special meeting to discuss what else we could do to help the county in the process of managing these projects. We believe that with the expertise and experience we have on the board, we could help be instrumental in the following that would help lower costs, design better projects, build more cost-effective projects for the county, and some of these services would be, but not limited to, the aid in site selection, selection of architects, selection of engineers, selection of contractors, input on the project before drawn by the engineers and architects regarding building placement, site due diligence, material selections for cost control, maintenance, etc., soil analysis, and compaction input. Also aiding in stakeholder meetings and aiding in evaluating existing buildings owned or not for repurposing in the future. The things that the PBA does now, I don't believe are serving the purpose that the PBA was intended for. The PBA is a volunteer organization by concerned citizens that want to do the right thing, that have expertise in building construction, in engineering, in architecture that can help the county. When the PBA is asked to manage a project, such as we were talking this evening about the forensic center, it does strap the PBA a little bit, because the PBA was not involved on the front end regarding selection of site, selection of contractor, selection of architect, selection of engineer. So we essentially in that situation are asked to take care of the barn after the horses left. Now, we can make sure no other horses get out, and we can make sure the horses that went into the field are taken care of so they don't get hurt. But we're a little limited. Not saying that the PBA wouldn't enjoy taking on this project to help, but some of our bang for our buck has already been taken away. No harm, no foul, but we can do better as a PBA to serve the constituents even on a more costly basis. The things that we've seen on the savings on the projects that we're overseeing right now and we oversaw last year was by having the expertise of professionals that are out in the field. We're holding the contractors' feet to the fire. We're holding the engineers' feet to the fire. We are making sure that everything that we're being billed for has been done with on-site reviews, and also the architect is providing a manager in their office to go ahead and make sure that the pay app is correct, followed by pictures and documentation. We've been very essential in the last year of looking at, for instance, change orders. That some we approved, some we didn't. Some of them got a little bit heated, but that's okay. Because we had a set of plans, a set of specs, and a budget. We were tasked with managing and monitoring those plans, those specs, that budget. Anything above and beyond, we couldn't appropriate unless it was going into the contingency fund or to bring it back to the budget committee and the full commission. Those are things that we've watched for to make sure, as an oversight committee of the contractor and the architect and the trades on the job. The big savings on this one on Plainview has been with not the site, but the site work. It was originally intended that this site was going to need a lot of undercut, meaning that we didn't have suitable soils that were stable enough to support the building, to support the parking lots, etc. When we met with the contract, we did some potholing to make sure that it would stand. We wanted to make sure that they got the best opportunity to go ahead and save money for the county. The way we did that was by giving him a, let's say, hurried schedule date so he could do his grading, his compaction, and seal off everything with a pug mix that you put down on a road before the nasty weather hit. If that weren't the case, we would have had a lot of undercut like we did at the one-stop building that I believe the budget on that was darn near $1.2 million over. Not that the PBA solved and helped save all this money, but there's 6 other sets of eyes, soon to be 7, on these projects of industry experts that are out in the field every day saying, there's a better way to do this. We can provide a better service for you. There's another set of eyes. And also, the contractors that come in and meet with us on the pay apps realize that they've got to explain to us what they did, why they did it, and if there's any situation they can see on the rise where we can try to solve that on the front end. Today, there came a change order before us on the AC units on this next building, and that's because federal law has changed on the refrigerant that can be used. The good thing with it is we caught it on the front end, made sure we can get new units at the exact same cost. We'll have to change some of the the brake ring and the switches, not at an extended cost, just a different switch in order to make this happen. These are the things that we look at on a monthly basis with the contractors. So we at the PBA would like to help any way we can. We would like to help more than we are now, and we believe that we can provide another line of oversight. We can provide more critique of our architects, our engineers, our contractors. We're not going to mandate to the contractor of who they hire as a subcontractor that's on the job, but we also understand that we're putting them on the spot and holding their feet to the fire that it's the right person. Once again, thank you for letting me speak before you. I do believe that the PBA is not only here to serve, but we as a board feel underutilized in what we could provide to the citizens of Rutherford County.
Mr. Chairman, all right, me and you known each other for a long time.
Quite some time.
Had some battles.
Couple.
But the thing that I think a lot of people, especially Commissioner Irvin, don't understand is change orders in a contract are extremely, extremely expensive. Would you agree? Say they want tempered windows instead of regular windows.
So there's.
I missed the, what are they, extremely what, I'm sorry?
If you have a problem, you don't know the difference between a PBA and a GC. So I'm just trying to help you. So my biggest thing is that Mr. Irving, who is a budget hawk, which is okay.
Thank you for watching our money.
He's a good, that's what he does. He doesn't hide that.
And
A lot of times people say, why do we use PBA? Because we got to pay extra.
Sure.
And so I want them to understand that change orders could save us a lot of money. And you're going to hold them to it. And you're also going to stay with the budget specs. And then here's the biggest thing, is there's 7 people on this board, 6 of them I know, who are qualified for us to go through these things instead of a mayor and a person that is a maintenance guy who does a great job and has a ton of work. And I want to, and just like a GC from R.C. Matthews on the Forensic Center, there's no transparency there for this commission to oversee that. So I'm trying to give you props is what I'm doing, but I'm also want you to explain, you know, Commissioner Irving, what the difference is between a PBA and then just a GC from the other, you know, contractor.
Let me take those one at a time. As far as expense and overruns on a project, on a construction project, it usually falls into 2 categories. Okay. Let me start here. I'm not here to offend anybody. I'm just here to answer your questions. So the only cost that the PBA would add to any project is just legal, which has to be done because we are a separate board and we have to have representation in order to make sure that we're covering the constituents' backs. The projects last year, our billing to our representative was $30,931. which for the projects we oversaw last year at $43,000 and change is 0.07%. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I was hearing today that this forensic project is $15 million. Is that correct? So at 0.07%, you're looking at about a $10,000 bill. That would be in addition. However, there's always hidden cost in doing business. So if there's a situation that arises where it needs legal involved, the county attorney would have to get involved with that. Understand he's on the payroll, but it's taking time away from other things, or he may not have time and now he's got to farm it out to somebody. So that's literally the only overrun cost that would come in PBA managing something. Once again, I'm not politicking for a project. We're just here to help. Any other questions?
Gary, go ahead.
On the project earlier we were talking about where there's a contractor or a manager already in place, okay? And that's a manager at risk, as I understand it. And so at that point, it's basically all on them. And so I was trying to get a sense for the PBA, what could you add to that scenario? It may be a lot, it may be a little, I don't know. Would you go and find another manager that would advise you then, or is that something that y'all would be willing to go out to the site and do whatever analysis is done and just kind of work through the process? I'm trying to understand, in a case where we already have a manager, could help me understand what else you would bring to the table.
Sure, absolutely.
You know.
So I can't talk about what might happen down the road. I can talk to you about what's happening now, okay? So on this Plainview project, the contract was bid, right? And it was a CM project, right? A CM at risk. However, it's also got built into it a contingency of about right under $200,000. The site work on that project was budgeted out at just under $800,000. If the contractor spent all $800,000, nobody would have complained because it was in the budget. But by looking at the site, talking with him about the site, deciding when to start the site, also talking with the school board if we could spread some of the dirt that was left over instead of hauling it off, because part of that $800,000 was $400,000 for haul off. By working with the contractor on the front end, we were able to save, at this point, it's $500, it'll be as high as $800,000 for our discussion today. If there was an oversight to ask him how we could get that number down, to take a look at the site itself, of how we grade the site, how we can spread the dirt, where we can actually pay a little money in engineering to regrade that site so we don't have to haul it off, the contractor could have easily spent all $800,000. Nobody would have raised an eyelash because it was in the budget. It was fine. Those are the things that we can bring to the table.
Thank you for your response. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I was on the commission when we originally formed the PBA, and it's something I've supported over the years. I do have some questions, and you know, I may have some numbers that are off, I may not. I know that we've had some problems, and as Michael mentioned to you guys earlier, if we use the PBA on certain projects, it would cost more than what the bid price is out there. I want to talk about that a little bit. Now, one thing I know, at one time we were kind of holding y'all's feet to the fire more on some, I don't know if they were perceived problems or what, but basically y'all were upping the bonds that you needed, and that was making a cost increase. Now, the other thing that I've heard were attorney fees, and I don't know, I think you explained that a minute ago, but I'm hearing some numbers that are a little bit different from that. But if you want to elaborate on those two items.
Yes, absolutely. So the numbers I got over from the attorney's office, and I'm not sure if they correspond with yours, Michael, because I'm not sure, but the numbers that I got over for billing out of the attorney's office last year to the PBA were $30,931. Oh, no, I'm just.
No, I ran them back through 2021, through most of the public health and safety projects in one stop. It was 117,000 since June of 2021. So that could be about right for a year. I would have to add the numbers up, but I can. I believe what Commissioner P is referring to is the additional bonds on the subs.
Sure.
I think we got that kind of worked out on Plainview.
Yes,
Plainview.
So On the bonding, when we started having discussions with our contractors about their bonding ability, the contractor does have a bond on the project. However, what we required is for the people they're hiring to have a bond.
Subcontractor.
Bingo. So therefore, we're doubly protected, so to speak. The issue that we had was this. The contract the PBA had did not include that language in it. So therefore, the contractor came back to us and said, we did what you asked us to do.
Can you move back to the microphone, please?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to be rude with my back to you.
Okay.
Okay. So what we didn't want to do is to expose the constituents and this commission to a project that if it went off the rails, something happened to a contractor, that the GC had the ability to go ahead not only bond their work, but bond the trades work. So we did make a change in that contract. It is now in every contract that goes out for bid. So that's not going to raise the price of anything. It just had to be clarified. The reason it did raise the price is that contract was already signed and approved before this was ever brought up. So we had to change our contract in order to make sure it was included. So in the bid package from now on, it's included. And I think we want to go down that route because, as we all know, the cheapest price isn't always the best price, and it's not always the best quality of work. If we have a trade that's doing work for $1 million and they don't have the bonding capacity for that, do we really want them on the job? If they can't bond their own work, that puts the GC at risk, which is his problem. But if the GC has a problem, then we've got a problem. So we wanted to make sure that we're covered by the major trades that are out there and the GC also.
Guys, any more questions for Gary? Not, I really appreciate you coming
my
and
pleasure.
talking to us. But I guarantee you, if any of y'all have questions or would like to go out on projects with them, I'm sure you'd be welcome.
Everybody's always welcome to our meetings, and we really welcome and enjoy your input. And then also, what I can do, I think Ms. Pearl at Brick's office sends it out. We do a once-a-month visit of an owner's meeting on site to all the projects. And of course, we can make sure that goes to all the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask one question about De-Web?
Yes.
And kind of where that project is and any savings that might be related to it?
As far as I'm told, the Del Webb project itself is dead, and the mayor's office is moving that to Elmaville Road in Smyrna, I believe.
It did. I think what Commissioner Urban's about is, while we do have, I just want to clarify because I've gotten a couple questions. While we do have savings, mostly at Plainview, I think, was site work. I think you did mention that, but
yes.
That was mostly because we had some issues at the site work on some of the previous public health and safety buildings. We're going to run into that issue again, I think, is why we built that into the contingency of
yes.
Plainview. And while we have had savings, mainly, I believe, out of contingency on the last few public health and safety buildings, I think I get a lot of questions on the reason we're short on Plainview is because, and I think this was before your time on the PBA, we were about $2 million more per public health and safety building than what we originally budgeted. And I'm not saying that's the fault of the PBA. I'm saying I think we started at like $6 million and they went to eight or nine on these last.
We started at about $5 million.
So I think that's where, while I'm glad we've had savings from contingency, that doesn't mean we've still got enough for Del Webb, the 8 or 9 million.
I completely agree. I came into the process on the PBA after these contracts were already let and we were ready to start construction. But here's what I understood. A bulk of that money came from the federal government, I'm told. And so this was right at, let's say, the onset of COVID. Construction pricing went through the roof. In some instances, products went up 500 to 600%. So therefore, it was budgeted that these buildings, I believe there were going to be 6, and they were budgeted at about $4,000 to $5,000 apiece. So I believe, from what I'm told, the money from the Fed was about $32 million. So it would have covered these 6 projects. By the time the projects actually got through planning, got through the architecture, got ready to go, that cost went up to $6 to $8 million a building. So therefore, it kind of I mean, it's either we only build a few, or we go find a bunch more money. So that's why that has been on hold, that I believe. Michael, I may be speaking out of turn because I wasn't there from the get-go, but I believe that's pretty much a synopsis.
No, it started before I got there too. I just
okay.
was referencing, I didn't want people to think, oh, we had 800,000, which is great, but that doesn't mean I'll get a call going, hey, that means we can build that web now. And
correct.
So
agreed.
Any other questions for Gary? Again, thank you for your
pleasure.
time.
Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. Do we have any other business before the commission tonight? Hearing none, we are adjourned.